You found the TEMSEA Leadership Podcast, the place where leadership begins with you. Join host Eric Kloss, an experienced paramedic, leadership-focused nurse, national speaker, and two-time author, as we explore the challenges, victories, and growth that comes from leading yourself before leading others. Subscribe now and journey with us to create a brighter future for EMS professionals everywhere.
Okay. Get it together, Eric. Profusely sweating here.
Maybe you should take off that.
I know, right? It's like 105 degrees outside. Anyway, it's good. Dr. Jenny Slayton, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Eric.
I feel like we've done this before.
Maybe we have.
Yeah, maybe we have. I'm excited to be here.
I'm again excited to be here.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. We have a lot to talk about, and we have been friends for over 20 years.
Ooh, really?
It has been.
Gosh, that's been crazy.
And I cannot wait to tell the story about how we met.
Here we go.
I wanted to introduce you properly first.
Okay.
It's Dr. Jenny Slayton. You are the Senior Vice President of Quality, Safety, and Risk Prevention at Vanderbilt University Medical Center.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big title, by the way. And you, if I remember correctly, you've been here since '99. Is that correct?
Technically since 98. I started as a nurse extern in the summer of 98, and I started as an RN in January of 99.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to definitely talk about that. Your journey, you have, over the years, you've won 2 prestigious awards. You've won the highest honor at VUMC. It was the 5-Pillar Leader Award. And then you've also won the Tennessee Hospital Association Patient Safety Leadership Award. And those are big deal. I mean, most people can't even come close to even getting mentioned in one, and you've won 2. Very few people have accomplished what you have in, I guess, your short time in leadership because you're young still. And I remember having a conversation with an executive that you and I both know. And he asked me what I was up to, and I said, hey, I'm getting ready to interview Dr. Slayton. And he said, I love working with Jenny. And I think that is really the theme for the people that have worked with you over the years, and that has certainly been my experience. But one of the most impressive things, and I've always looked up to you as a leader, is you are very humble, but you're very confident in a quiet way. And that is an amazing trait. And does that make you uncomfortable when I tell you those things?
I think so, yeah.
Which is a testament to who you are as a leader. And so we'll start this is the day that Lee recruited me to the Pediatric Emergency Department in 2005. So he calls me, and I was working in an ICU in Nashville, and he said, hey, there's an opportunity at Vanderbilt. Are you interested in coming over? And I'm like, yeah. And then he said, it's in the Pediatric Emergency Department. I was like, whoa, I'm not quite sure about this. And so I did. And you were the charge nurse that I met during my first shift. And that day was a little chaotic.
That's one way to describe it.
Yes.
Some might say a lot chaotic.
A lot of helicopters.
A lot of helicopters.
My first shift got I got turned loose in the middle of, I won't say crisis, it was controlled chaos for that day. But that was all fine. But I just remember watching you and just instantly feeling, I think that sense of your leaders got it. And that was my first impression of you, of working for someone that I knew it was going to be okay. And that was my first encounter with you. And to watch you on your journey has been so impressive. So.
Thank you. I was always impressed that you came back the second time. That showed you had an enormous amount of resiliency and that you could make it.
It was a terrifying experience, but I think, one of the things that we'll talk about when we were there, and dealing with kids is emotional for everybody. But I remember you not getting emotional and you just not letting the situation dictate your emotions. And that is a quality that you had that I have tried to exercise, through my years of leadership. And how long did it take you to get to where you felt confident, although uncertain?
I think that's every day, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I think a little bit of that uncertainty is healthy because it keeps you on your toes. But how long did it take me to get the level of confidence? I still remember maybe my first or second shift as a nurse extern / care partner, because that was basically my role when I came to Vanderbilt in the summer before I graduated. I did my undergraduate nursing at Middle Tennessee State University. And it was an honor to be able to come up and see some of the things so quickly that I had seen in books and in context. I didn't know really what type of nursing I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work at Vandy, and coming up here that summer, it was really probably day 2. I still remember my preceptor's name. His name was Kenny. And then we unfortunately had a mortality as a result of a single car MBC. And I just remember that was probably the first person I'd ever seen die. And he immediately was like, come on, we've got to get back out in the ED. Here are the 5 things we need to get done, right? And in some aspects, you consider that can be healthy, right? I was able to focus, get back into the work, and know what the task was at hand that I needed to get done. On the other side, I think that starts that, and especially those listening to this and those in healthcare in general, we're pretty phenomenal compartmentalizers, which may not always be healthy. You've done a lot of work in that space, Eric, around some of the PTSD from a EMS perspective. But I think in some instances that helped me grow just clinically very fast, being in the adult ED to start and then transitioning into the peds ED. But also it was the people that I was surrounded with. I think the team is the basis of any great success, whether that be in a resuscitation or being able to put together an organized heart walk. It comes down to the core of that team. And if you can trust each other, that helps you really achieve the goals at hand. And I think I've always, and that's one of the reasons I've stayed at Vanderbilt for, we won't say how many years. I started when I was 12. But I think it's really important to know that team-based atmosphere is one where you feel like the person next to you's got your back, whether that's in the boardroom or at the trauma bay, that you can trust each other and grow and know that we're going to keep our patient at the center of what we're doing. So when did I get that confidence? I would still say I don't know that I have it, right? There's ever a little bit of that every day of, do I have the skill set to do what is needed today? Constantly trying to grow, reading, studying, watching people, trying to pick up on the traits of the skills and the leaders I've been exposed to in the past. You were very kind and very gracious with your intro of me. You left out some of the color commentary, of which I appreciate. But I think the reality is I've learned as much from you, from Lee, over the course of the years and all the people I've been exposed to. And we have to be, I think, perpetual learners if we want to be successful, both as professionals and in our home and personal lives as well.
At what point in your journey did you realize you had leadership potential?
I would actually say that goes way back. I think I was I grew up in a really small community. I grew up in Giles County. Some folks will know that area well. Still live there today. But I think that probably started back in high school, to be honest, and wondering did I have the skill set? Did I have things that needed to be done? I grew up in a household with 3 older brothers. So by nature, I was a survivalist, right? But I think I found that I enjoyed it. I enjoyed being able to work with people, work with teams. And I think when I transitioned into the emergency department, it was back in the time where there wasn't still to this day, it's not a ton of staff. But I was a brand new grad, and I was put in the position of a charge nurse within 6 months of graduating from nursing school.
Wow.
pretty quick. And I enjoyed it,
Mm-hmm.
right? I had some seasoned nurses that both helped me. I love the environment, being in an academic medical center and teaching and learning and being taught. Our attendings were nonstop, being able to want to teach and share and grow and learn together, as well as the residents. Just a lot of fun. It was after the Children's Hospital moved into the current facility that we're in. I started thinking like, hey, this leadership thing, I've been a charge nurse for a while. This might be something I really want to explore more. I started my master's at Vanderbilt, really enjoyed the coursework, and I thought, okay, it was kind of nurturing and feeding the beast, if you would. And this is kind of a challenging story to share, but one that I think is important for folks to hear is at that time I went to my manager and said, hey, there's an open assistant manager position. I think this is something I'm really interested in. I've gone back to school. I'm enjoying it, would really like to grow and develop in this space. And the response was one that I did not anticipate. This response was, I really just don't think you've got good leadership skills. Like, I don't think you're going to make a good leader. Maybe we should think about another path. And I just remember thinking, okay. Left somewhat dejected, licking my wounds a little bit, as anybody would. But then immediately thought, well, what's my alternative? I love emergency medicine. I love being able to be in that environment, the intensity. So I decided that my next path might be in a black jumpsuit on a helicopter. So I took that path. I got my EMT license out in Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. That was a blast. I had so much fun riding in the back of a truck. It was super cool. And then came back and started working in some community hospitals to get out of the some might call bubble of being at VUMC, where you've got everything at your fingertips. And that was an incredible experience, very valuable. Gained a lot of respect for what happens in the community hospital setting, and very appreciative for that learning opportunity. So I think what I learned from that perspective was, I got told, I don't think you're the right person for this. And at the time for me, it was about leaning into, well, then what are my other options? Not just to sit and lick those wounds perpetually, but to say, okay, that's what one person thinks about me. What might else I do, right? And kind of go down that path.
I want to hear more about, do you know why she made that comment? Which, by the way, for everybody listening to this, I think this is a great reminder of we're all leaders. We have to be very careful about what we say, because that was how many years ago?
Oh, at least 20.
And you still feel, like you still can feel it.
Oh, of course.
So any idea why?
None. And
did she say it reactionary, by the way? Was it just the first thing that came out of her mouth, like, whoa, I just don't think there's, or was it after thoughtful consideration?
I don't want to project what I thought her reaction was, or if it was just a spur of moment, or if it was something she had considered. I think I didn't want to give energy or value to it by overanalyzing it.
It was hard not to, though, wasn't it?
No, not really.
Okay. How come?
Just done, right? Okay, that door closed. And I think that's somewhat, I can be somewhat reactionary of, I see this change and I want to quickly know what's my exit path, right? What's my next step? If the road is closed here, am I turning right or am I turning left? And I think that's what I felt in that moment was, okay, well, I don't see her going anywhere anytime soon, so maybe I need to find out what my alternative path is. I want to be challenged regardless of what that is.
I'm fascinated by that, because I think for young people, and I say young in the leadership journey, depending on the age, that is such a mature move that I would expect to handle something that way now, but at a young age, I mean, that totally could have been devastating to the career. So I want to go back just a little bit further. And how do you think you got to that point where you basically use the analogy of it's like water on a duck's back. It just flowed off. But some people gravitate on something so negative, and sometimes it causes personal challenges,
Of course.
career challenges.
Right.
Do you remember a time, like, how did you get to that point? That is such an interesting quality that I think takes a long time to mature.
Yeah, I don't really know if there is a defining moment that I can go back to and point to and say, okay, yes, this is it. I think there was several things through college and my decision course through college of, well, I'd gone to one school to start off with and ultimately finished out a year there, accomplished a few things, but they didn't have a nursing program. Like I felt like I had made some decisions in my past that really forfeited me the opportunity to keep moving forward.
Okay.
And that's kind of a little bit of a mantra, is just keep moving forward. And I think that's one of the things I learned just as over the course of time is you get a roadblock. It's not about the roadblock, it's how you react to it. And that's really important to remember, is one person's assessment of me at any point in my life, whether that was high school, college, or beyond, wasn't necessarily about defining me. And I chose not to let those things define me. And I can go back to other key moments where certain individuals said X, Y, or Z to me, and it was about, okay, that's one perspective. Now it's my chance to figure out what is that, to let it grow inside of me, or just to let it roll right off and say, that's one perspective. How do I pivot to what my next opportunity might be?
I think to add to that, criticism, which we all get criticized. And I remember, years ago in doing a lot of speaking and being evaluated, and you get, let's just use this as an example. So there's 100 people that do an evaluation, and 99% of them say, we loved your talk. And then there's that one person that just doesn't like you for whatever reason. And it's very easy to focus on the 1% versus the 90%. And one of the things that I think changed criticism for me was to, and I've read it several different ways about, don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't go to and ask advice from. And I think that is a big deal. And then I'll also look at the credibility of the individual if they come to me with love. If you came to me and said, Eric, I need to talk to you about your performance in this, I'm locked in. But if it's somebody that I don't respect, and they just like, it's the duck thing, like you're entitled to your opinion. And I think that's critical, for leaders the further they go, because you have to make some decisions that are not popular. And you're going to be... there's going to be a lot of people that throw stones. Maybe you're not going to hear about it, but through the trickle down. But I think we have to understand how to get criticism and where it is coming from and what we can do about it. And you were definitely very, with your skill, fortunate to be able to turn that into something positive. I appreciate you sharing that.
I would say one additional thing about that is it is important, and through that time period, to make sure that you are surrounded by people, or that you're seeking guidance from those that will be objective, but do have your interest in mind.
Yes.
And through, you can call it a coach or mentorship. If it's sporting activities, you're typically calling that a coach. But all through my career, I think it's been, even at the bedside, it's important for individuals to figure out who are those folks that you would consider mentors that could help you along your path. It's important to have them in industry, and the industry that you're working in. I think it's equally as important to have those folks you can go to that are outside of your industry, because sometimes they can see things a bit more objectively. And that's not something that happens overnight. And I think that's one thing I would share with folks is folks aren't going to walk up to you and say, hey, Eric, can I be your mentor? Right? That's typically not the path it's going to take. There are people waiting for you.
That's right.
To take that initiative to ask, hey, would you mind mentoring me? Because that in itself shows that someone's committed, they're willing to learn, they're going to be receptive. And I still have my mentors, but it is one of the greatest gifts that I have of paying it forward, is to be able to mentor people now. So that's one thing that even at this ripe old age of, I will keep that to myself. Seeking that guidance is something I did as recent as yesterday.
Yeah. I want to park there for a second because Lee and I were actually talking about it before you came in. I am much more comfortable now to have that circle of people that I trust that I can be honest with. But it took me years to understand the value, and maybe it was a pride thing, maybe it was an immature thing. I don't have all the answers, but I love to get that as in, hey, if I call someone, be like, hey, I really need your insights on this. That's a very powerful thing, and I like what you said, to do it within your profession and outside of your profession, because sometimes we become tunnel vision, right? In healthcare, and everything is revolving around crisis mode. And then you talk to someone outside of healthcare and you're like, whoa, time out. This is not the real world, what you're talking about.
Right.
And so I appreciate you doing that. I encourage everybody who's listening to this to build a relationship with someone. And maybe it starts with that, and then you're getting advice. But also be careful to the mentor that you want can't mentor you in every single thing of your life. It's very specific.
Right.
Because we all go through different seasons, and not one mentor can fix everything or help you and coach you along the way. I wanted to ask, with you being a vice president, habits that you have, your rituals through the day, like you don't get to where you are by accident, but to sustain and continue to grow. What are some things that you think the audience can learn from that are not at your position about healthy habits, whether it's how do you prioritize, what are some things that you do? You mentioned a couple things like reading. Just walk us through what keeps you sharp. They say in the book by Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, sharpening that saw to make you continue to grow. What does that look like for you normally? Just what are some things coming to your mind?
Serve Strong Corbin Scott Goode Memorial Foundation is proud to announce Corbin's Hometown Heroes 2025 Bash on October 4th, 2025 from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. at Fairfield Glade Community Center in Fairfield Glade, Crossville, Tennessee. You've never seen an event like this before. Tickets are limited and already being reserved because the demand is that high. 100% of the Hometown Heroes Bash will go directly to help first responders and their families. This incredible event will have an amazing buffet featuring barbecue chicken quarters, smoked sausage, pulled pork, soft drinks, beer, and wine for the first 2 hours, as well as a cash bar. And if that's not enough, there will also be an exciting live auction and a huge silent auction featuring worldwide vacations and once-in-a-lifetime experiences, autographed celebrity and sports memorabilia, designer jewelry, and handbags, as well as raffles giving away a wide variety of prizes. Do not miss your chance. Call your friends and secure your table of 8 now. Call Shannon McGee today for tickets and details at 931-260-1981. That's 931-260-1981, or visit servestrong.us. That's servestrong.us and click BASH. Serve Strong believes first responders are hometown heroes wherever they live. Come on out to Corbin's Hometown Heroes Bash event in Fairfield Glade, Crossville, Tennessee. Call 931-260-1981 or visit servestrong.us and click BASH.
Normally, just what are some things coming to your mind?
Yeah, I think there's, I like those healthy habits, the term that you used. And I think before you can pour into others or pour into your work, it's imperative that you pour into yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup. So what does that look like for me is I learned years ago that after having not had the best physical health routine possible, I learned very quickly that, I have to devote that time to me and create those habits, honestly, before I got into work. I jokingly say once I'm at work, then I don't really have a lot of control over what time my day ends or what does the rest of my day look like. I'm an early riser. I know some people that's like, ugh, but I'm a 4 a.m., 4:30 kind of person, like clockwork, up and at the gym, so I can get that rush of endorphins or release of physical or mental stress and activity just kind of out. And that is my happy place. Where I crank up the music. I'm not listening to Stephen Covey, no offense, Mr. Covey, or anything, Brene Brown. I'm not listening to those folks. I'd be embarrassed to show you my playlist, but that's my time where I am pretty protected during those early morning hours. I'm not, I can't say that I am a 7-day-a-week kind of person, right? Rest is important as well. But that's typically how I start my day. And then I finish it up with some quiet time and devotion and just kind of centering myself. So trying to take the different aspects of what's important to me. And then I think it's also important as I manage my day, I try that at the end of the prior day, I'm looking ahead, figuring out what it is I need to prioritize. But also, you have to have a level of agility to realize that what you plan for today, much like being in the field or being in the ED or the clinic or an inpatient unit, you can plan all day, but the world may have different approaches for you. And you may have to pivot and say, okay, I've got it. This is now my priority for today. What I thought was going to get done has got to be put on the back burner, and I have to be able to comfortably move forward. It is almost identical to the ED. I've jokingly said that my time in the emergency department prepared me nicely for my time as an administrator, because no day is ever the same. And there's always going to be chronically the level 1 trauma coming in. It just looks different now. It may look like the Joint Commission rolling in. But I think those are some of my habits. And I think the other thing that's really important is we have to advance as an industry and as a nation, honestly, around our time away from the office. We have to be able to put our phones down. My husband and I love camping. We love being outdoors. We love camping. And some of the best hiking, I said camping twice. Some of the best, most rejuvenating vacations I've had is going places where my phone doesn't work. I've been on a trip where the only, with 10 other people, and there was a sat phone, and that was for emergency evacuation needs. And that was the most amazing experience for 10 days, right? Nothing, no outside influence, had no idea what was going on in the world. Pretty amazing.
Have you always been that way in your leadership journey?
No, I think that is.
Can you tell us about why?
Yeah,
what the change is?
I can say that I probably was more of a workaholic several years ago. Live, eat, and breathe this place. Wanting to be available to my team, available to my leaders. How do I constantly keep pushing forward and improving for the betterment of our patients and our families? And I think my world got rocked pretty hard in 2022. In November of 2022, I was diagnosed with triple positive breast cancer, and have been a part of that, going along that journey for a number of years now, or almost 3 years, I guess. And I think that shifts your perspective pretty quick. It's kind of like having the rug pulled out from underneath you, and your priorities turn on a dime, where you figure out pretty quickly what's important, and where you've been spending your time and how you've been filling your cup. And I think that's one of the things that through my breast cancer experience, it's probably taught me the most is what is important in life, what can I gain from the experiences I've had, but also how do I have that balance. I know that it's like a very popular work-life balance. Is it really a balance, or is it a prioritization? Who knows? And some days it's different. It's not necessarily going to be 50-50 every day. But some days I may be here 10, 14 hours, but then, other days I'm going to be off all weekend or a long weekend and not look at my phone. Like, that's okay too. And I think that's some of the things I've learned the most is about being able to reprioritize, but still feel that I'm doing my job. But more importantly, I have also realized those times when I was working nonstop, I wasn't sending a very good message to my teams. The message
you thought you were, though.
I thought I was. The message I was sending to them was if I emailed on a Saturday at 5 p.m., they felt like they needed to respond to me by 5:30. And that has been an eye-opening experience to use the delay send on email, right? Have things be sent during normal business hours, because then you start reinforcing, like, just because this is when I need to work or I'm getting things done, I'm not expecting you to respond to me. And if I do send something to you, then it's an urgent, right? It's not something that's just because it's a convenience factor for me.
There's so much to unpack there, Jenny. The going back to, in that moment, you changed very quickly. And oftentimes, I think we don't change until we have to change, and in positive ways as well. And I appreciate you being vulnerable enough to share that really changed your focus, because sometimes I think that wake-up call is real. Although we put the badge on and we're healthcare providers, there may be a time that we are the patient. And did you learn a lot from being a patient?
Yeah, I learned a ton from being a patient, and it was a very humbling experience for me to figure out what, one, I like being in control. I know that's a newsflash, but this really was kind of complete lack of control. And I think one of the things that I remember being very struck by, because it happened, so everything started happening really, really quickly. So I had to have a port put in so I could start chemotherapy and antibody therapy pretty quickly. And that act alone for me was one of the hardest things, is the having a port. Because to me, it meant I was chronic. Like, now I'm really a patient. Like, now this is really real. And for a lot of folks, like, not in healthcare, that was really, they didn't really understand, like, it's just a port. But when you think about, for me, it was the number of times I'd accessed a port, and the number of times, and the patients, how sick they were, and your mind just starts playing a lot of these kind of cascading games for you. I learned to trust. I'm in quality and patient safety, so what the work I do each and every day with my teams is we are focused on our failures. We are focused when we don't provide the highest level of care. And sometimes that's really hard to be in that position when you're in the chair and you're the patient. But I got to see our health system at its finest, and it wasn't because I wore a badge. It was because I was their patient. From my oncologist to my surgical oncologist to the greeters at 100 Oaks when I'd walk in that recognized me because I was there almost every week, right? Oh, you're looking good today. Are you feeling better? It's that humanity in healthcare that really was pretty powerful. And all the way through my journey, through multiple surgeries, through chemo and radiation, it's just been an amazing experience. I think that's probably pretty hard for people to hear. But I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I'm very thankful I experienced it.
And you gained some valuable life lessons as a result of that you can't read. And when you share that with people now, there's conviction, because that was you. That was your story. You appreciate it differently. And I appreciate you sharing that, really. That's very, very powerful. And it's not fun being a patient.
No.
But I think it's helpful, right?
It is.
I mean,
it puts things in perspective.
Especially when you're in these leadership roles.
And I think how it changed me as a leader was, again, you have to learn what you can manage, but you used the word earlier, but have the vulnerability to say, I can't do it today. And I had to trust my teams to be able to keep carrying the work forward. And that's really our responsibility as a leader too. It isn't for me to be the single spoke in the wheel that makes that wheel turn. If that's true, then I have truly failed.
That's right.
My job as a leader is to strengthen those around me, that if I am gone, if I am out unexpectedly, that wheel can keep turning. And I think that's one of the most prideful moments, is just to see my team stand up, take it on, and be empowered, but also feel very appreciated and supported because they wanted me to take care of myself. Yeah. Wow. It's pretty powerful.
Let's talk about your why.
Great question. And I think that's one of the things you have to stay centered on. There's a great book out there that folks could listen to if they haven't, or read. And it's by Simon Sinek. It's called Remembering Your Why. And I think that's a book that I've revisited numerous times, depending on where I'm at, depending on the time of year. But I think there's a couple of things that I would say about remembering the why. One is that at the end of the day, when we come to work, whether that's in the back of a truck, in a helicopter or in an office or in a hospital. It's the patients in front of us and their family members. They are our why. And I can give a personal example and a professional example. When I first started in quality and patient safety, one of the things that we started doing as a part of our improvement work, or I was asked to do, was to lead a root cause analysis. And folks are probably familiar, where you take a deep dive into a system and where there may have been an adverse outcome, and what can we do to improve so that we don't allow that level of harm to a patient again. I can sit here in front of this group and say with 100% affirmation, I know exactly the name of my very first patient that I did an RCA on. I know how old he was. I know what his outcome was, and I know what our systems did to not deliver the ideal outcome for him. Furthermore, I know exactly what we implemented to make sure another patient wouldn't be harmed in the same way. And I think that sometimes folks feel like, well, the further you get away from the bedside, the further you get away from remembering your why. And I don't think that's necessarily true. It may be for some. But I could sit here and tell you 5 patients that we're working on things right now related to systems and processes, because we can do better. They deserve better. And that fuels me. It fuels me to get up every day to fight the battles that need to be fought so that we can do what's right for our patients and families.
I've never heard that before. That is so powerful.
Yeah. It's important to have that fire inside. It's also important to control the fire inside so it doesn't eat you alive. There's a balance there, so I want to caution folks for that. But I think as a personal example, I would say that one of the interesting things during my breast cancer journey was, people have to break the ceiling to get into our medical records, right? And I think it was my second or third visit with my surgical oncologist, and had not disclosed anything about what I did for a living, or she hadn't asked. So we were very focused on what my care plan was. And that second or third visit, she was like, yeah, I just realized who you are. And I looked at her and I said, oh, I would have thought you'd have picked up on that sooner. I'm your patient. And she nodded and she said, I'm talking about what you do. And I was like, nope, I'm your patient. And I wanted that to be very clear, that I was sitting there as her patient, and I wanted to the care, and I chose to be treated and see her because she had an amazing reputation for treating her patients, not treating their titles. And I think that was really important and pivotal for me, and hopefully helped her a bit too.
That's great advice. I know our time is running slim at the moment. I wanted to just spend a couple of minutes and getting your advice. So a young aspiring leader is maybe new into the journey of leadership, or saying, wow, I think I want to be a leader. Any advice that you can give those individuals that are like, hey, I'm looking for something, like I'm looking to learn? What would you say to them?
I think a few things. So I'll try to keep it kind of brief and short. One is be hungry. Put yourself out there. So be hungry. By that I mean learn, read audiobooks. Try to. I'm listening to an audiobook now about leadership. Right? It's something, and you'll find ones that you're like, oh, you take 5 or 6 things away from. Then that's good. Keep moving forward. Keep working on that. I think the other thing is find that mentor. Find somebody that can help coach you, can help support you, help give you the good news and the bad news. I think the other thing is, use a term by the author Sheryl Sandberg, who wrote Lean In, is literally lean in. Don't necessarily wait to say, hey, Eric, can you, will you? You've got to show the initiative and the grit behind saying, I'll figure it out. If somebody will help me, if somebody will teach me, I'll step in and do X, Y, or Z. I can't tell you the number of times I've been in that position and been absolutely terrified, but I learned so much and was able to build rapport with so many as a result of. And then lastly is don't be afraid to fail. If you think about the progression of children, right, they have to learn to crawl and then they learn to walk. But a part of learning to walk is how do you fall and get back up? And that's a big piece of it. I have not obsession, that's probably not the right word, an affinity for the Japanese culture. And one of the terms inside of the Japanese culture is gambate kudasai. And that means if you fall down 7 times, you get up 8. So you've got to learn from each of those situations and keep moving forward. And I wouldn't be paying Dr. Corey Slovis any honor if I didn't come up with a 5th one. And I think the 5th one would be have fun. Don't take yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to like you. So you've got to figure out how to have fun in what you're doing, and you won't work a day in your life, right?
You got to smile a lot, yeah.
Yeah, you got to smile a lot. And you have to be able to laugh at yourself.
Yes, well, or your family will.
And your friends.
And your friends.
Yes.
Would you do anything differently if you had to go back?
That's a great question. You know, I've thought that often. I have in my career, even though I've been here for so long, I've interviewed at a number of different places at different segments of my career, and part of that was seeking growth opportunity or seeing what was out there. And at times, sometimes I think, well, what if I would have done that? But what always kept me in my current at Vanderbilt was I was still learning and growing here, and whatever opportunities were out there wasn't anything necessarily different than what I had here. It was just in a different zip code, right? So if I'd have done anything differently, I probably wouldn't have been so mean to you on your first day. Then that wouldn't have started off our podcast like this. I don't think so. I think I also try to live with no regrets. I've learned a lot through other life experiences from that perspective. They're life experiences, but why have any regrets of it? This organization, Vanderbilt, the EMS community, which I started my career in, I loved every minute of it. I usually introduce myself in presentations and talks as a recovering ER nurse, and I mean that legitimately. Like, there's some times where I'm like, just to go back for one shift. I don't think I could handle it, but I'd like to think I could.
Yeah.
Right? So, no, I don't think I have any regrets.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't.
I think that's healthy, too.
I do.
I've been very blessed. I finished school here and learning and loving my career here and getting to see people that I've been able to work with in the past really excel and do great things. I mean, man, it's a good journey.
You know, as we wrap this up, we always say that the most important person you will ever lead is you. And we say that, and I think you're a role model for that, really. And, you know, one of the big pivotal moments for me in my life is when I had to own everything that was happening in my life. And there was no blame. Like, I knew that it had to start with me. And that was probably a big shift to self-leadership. And I think you've given us several examples of why starting with you is the most important thing. Because if you can't give what you don't have.
Right. It goes back to that cup, right?
Yes.
If you don't pour into yourself.
That's right. Well, we are better because of you.
Aww.
We are. And I'll tell you, the watching you through your journey, because I've had an opportunity to do that. We don't work directly together, but obviously we're in the circles where we hear of each other's work. And every time that you have received a promotion, there was never a surprise. And I just knew. But you are so appreciated here, not just by me, but by many people. And you make the world a better place. Thanks for being with us today.
Well, I appreciate all you guys are doing and all your listeners are doing, and also making the world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you.